Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of the Monsters Den. In the co-captain's chair, he's been gone for a couple of weeks, but he's back. Mr. Chris Alo, what's happening, my man?
What's going on, Pete? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being
Missed
here.
everybody. Missed talking horror movies every Thursday.
Everybody missed you. Everybody missed you.
I'm glad to be back.
You know, we had Dan and Jamie and Mike Portnoy last week. We had Kirk came in and helped out the week before, but it's good to have Chris back as always.
Yeah.
And, we before we started recording today, we actually talked for almost a half hour about what we're going to be talking about tonight. We didn't mean to, but it's hard not to get all caught up and excited about talking about Dario Argento films, right?
It's true. Absolutely. I've met Dario a couple times. Super nice guy. One of, without a doubt, my personal opinion, top two or three greatest horror movie directors of all time. I mean, in rewatching some of his stuff, I mean, it's just unbelievable. Nobody shoots a movie like Dario Argento. I mean, I was watching a guy cross the street, but the way he frames it and shoots it, like I'm glued to the goddamn screen. It's crazy.
Yeah. And it's amazing how he's taken, and he's probably the guy who single-handedly made giallo films, however you actually say it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Made them, such the phenomenon that they were, that so many other directors, I guess you could probably say Mario Bava is probably the guy who really started doing that first, but I think Argento's the guy who brought it more to the mainstream. And it's just amazing what he has been able to do. And not all of his films follow that. And just so folks watching who maybe aren't that familiar with what a giallo is, it's basically like a crime thriller that's part horror, part kind of like I said, crime thriller, usually involving a psychopathic killer or serial killer. And basically these films are like whodunits, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a simple concept. And he's done a lot of them, but every one of them is so damn fascinating and fun to watch and has all the horrific elements that we love, in this genre thing we call horror, right? And
Right.
It's very Italian.
Yeah, I mean the Italians, the giallo elements, from a Angela Lansbury murder mystery to a giallo. Giallos have a lot more sex and nudity. Giallos have a lot more blood and violence.
Yep.
And giallos, you typically you don't see the killer. It's usually you see the black gloved hands of the killer, or maybe you see them in the shadows, or
Yep.
they have a hat on, and there's always the Scooby-Doo clues that are dropped throughout the movie for the viewer to try and fill them out. And of course, sometimes because it's Italian horror films are always more style over plot. So sometimes you're just like, what the fuck? But that's okay. That's all right.
It's totally okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the good thing. It's like, you get to the end of the film and you're like, all right, I don't know what the hell is going on here. All I know is they've thrown out like 4 red herrings, so the killer could be any one of these people.
Yep.
And then you get the actual reveal at the end. You're like, oh, well, I didn't see that coming. And that's a giallo film. You really don't know how you got there.
It's true.
It doesn't really matter because 8 people got sliced and diced, and you saw like 3 or 4 naked women, and all sorts of crazy stuff and some chase scenes and all this kind of stuff. And that's what makes these films so exciting. And granted, not all of his movies are, basically what we just described.
Right. They don't all follow that format. But ironically, my 5 pretty much are dead on. And I'm like, geez, it's all pretty much that same similar style of some innocent bystander unwittingly getting involved in, they either find a witness a murder, or they see a crime, and the innocent bystander then goes to try and solve the murder and track down the killer.
Yeah. And occasionally he'll throw a little kind of like supernatural stuff in.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
One thing where he will deviate a little bit. But yeah, you're right. At its core, no matter whether it's a straight crime thriller, there's a serial killer on the loose, or whether there's some sort of supernatural thing going on, there is always this innocent person who just
Right.
happens to stumble upon whatever the hell it is that's going on. And most of those characters in all these films are actually really, really well done. And
For sure.
well acted. And, there's been plenty of, familiar faces in a lot of Dario Argento films that you've either seen somewhere else or made a name for themselves afterwards. A lot of really beautiful women are in these films for the most part.
Absolutely.
And then you have,
I mean, I was going to say if we're the most familiar face, and I was going to say, if we're talking Dario Argento, his most frequent collaborator was his first his girlfriend and then his wife, Daria Nicolodi. Yeah. The mother of his daughter Asia. I mean, she's she's in most of his films, and the biggest one that she's not in, which is Suspiria, she co-wrote.
Yeah.
So that was probably his biggest frequent collaborator.
Writing and everything of all these films, and
plus, then if we're going from there, then Goblin. Goblin did the score for several of his movies, and then even when Goblin broke up, he would work with Claudio Simonetti, who's the main man behind Goblin. So he definitely had his frequent, and there were others too, but definitely some frequent flyers with Dario Argento.
And I will say the Goblin part of this whole conversation cannot be understated. I mean, in rewatching most of these films again over the last week or two, it's amazing how even more intense these films are because of that driving, proggy, psychedelic soundtrack from these guys. And Goblin, I mean, it's just
unbelievable.
Incredible, right?
Yeah, incredible. And I still can't believe that I was able to see Goblin twice in concert in recent years. What crazy world am I living in that America had multiple tours from both Goblin and Fabio Frizzi, who did the Fulci soundtracks? I mean, that's crazy. What a crazy world we're living in. Yeah. But yeah, Michele Soavi, who directed movies like Demons and The Church, which Argento produced, is another frequent Argento collaborator.
Yeah, true.
So yeah, like most directors, he, George Romero and Carpenter, they all did the same thing. They had people they like to work with, and they would, pull them back in.
Yeah, absolutely. So now that in saying all that, we are actually here to rank our 5 favorite Dario Argento films.
Right.
So we're going to start at number 5, work our way to number 1, then we'll give a couple of honorables at the end. So I'll have Chris kick us off with his number 5.
Sure. And somebody did mention that we should have done a top 10. That would have been tough. Yeah, I think 5 was right on. Yeah. And even still, it was kind of tough getting a ranked. My number 5 is 1975's Deep Red, also known as the Deep Red Hatchet Murders. Profondo Rosso was the Italian title, and I had just recently read that it was re-released in 1980 under the title The Hatchet Murders, which I had never heard of before. But it was his first, big taste of international success. Probably his first, true, masterpiece, if you want to call it. I think it's great, and I rewatched it the other day. I mean, it's just beautiful the way he makes a movie, the way he frames everything, and everything moves. But having said that, there is some gore. But having said that, and I have seen and owned this movie several times, and they are now in the process of doing all the Dario Argento movies in 4K. I will absolutely buy Deep Red in 4K when it's available. But, the reason it's at number 5 and not higher for me is I'm watching the movie, and I mean, I know who the killer is, but I've never been able to understand any of these fucking clues. So this time I'm watching so intently, and I'm like, I don't get it. I got nothing. And then you get to the end and they explain the killer. I'm like, what? I'm like, you know, they give you that liquid, you know,
That's the
spoiler.
joy of the whole thing.
Right. They give you a quick little, you know, 2-minute video recap flashback to explain. And you're like, but how did you get to that from the clues? I was never going to get to that. I mean, I knew who the killer was, but I know I'm looking for too much. But holy Christ, the Goblin score. I mean, Dario Nicolodi's awesome. David Hemmings is awesome. I mean, the look of Deep Red is amazing. The effects from Carlo Rambaldi are fantastic. But having said all that, Jesus Christ, my favorite thing could be the goddamn score from Goblin. I showed this the other day. Here's one of my Deep Red CDs. I got others. And I think I have the vinyl too. But man, the score from Goblin is just on every track is just it's an earworm. It's just, oh my God.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, perfect pairing there. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
well, more about that later. As we say here on Sea of Tranquility, right? My number 5. So, you know, it's funny how you said a couple people said you got to do a top 10. The thing with Argento's films is like his best like 5, 6, or 7 are really good. Once you kind of get past that, it's like then there's like the law of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
A little bit, right?
Agreed.
So,
I mean, as great as he is, there is a
yeah.
Listen, like with most artists, there's a drop off.
There is a drop off. So for me, it's like my top 4 were pretty much set in stone. The number 5 was tough because I had like 3 films that were jockeying for number 5. I went with this one now. That could change any time, and I have a couple others in honorable mentions that I'll talk about later that just kind of missed the cut, but are still really, really good. But I'm going to go with what was this 1970s the bird with the crystal plumage.
Ah, yes.
So this is before Deep Red, and this is kind of like the so what they call it? This is the first in the what they call this, the animal trilogy.
The animal trilogy. Yep, and that's his first big release. Yeah.
And it's it's a little tamer compared to some of the other ones that he would do afterwards, but it's still a really good kind of killer on the loose, psycho murder mystery, which again is the heart of all these films. And it just, it starts off just like we said, here you got this American writer who's vacationing in Rome with his girlfriend, a very attractive Susie Kendall, who shows up in quite a lot of these films on my head. And he just happens to be witnessing something as he's walking around out one night in an art gallery. He sees like this guy in a black trench coat and gloves and what looks to be like a hat or some kind of mask attacking a woman. So of course he tries to go in and break up what's going on, and he gets trapped in the like the entranceway of the gallery, right? And so he sees what appears to be this guy attacking a woman. So the police wind up coming, and the woman's okay. She's going to live. She doesn't, she kind of doesn't remember much about what happened or who it was, all this kind of stuff. So the rest of the film is trying to find out who this attempted killer was. And then boom, 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 other, killings happen. And again, it's a total twist ending that I remember the first time I saw this, I totally did not see that coming. But again, really well acted, really good score. Just has everything you like about these Italian kind of crime thriller, / horror films, and pretty fast paced and good acting, I think.
Oh yeah.
This one kind of crept. I did not expect this one to be in my top 5 for this, but
if we were doing a 6, I think that would have been my number 6.
Right. I mean, it's a good one. It's really,
absolutely.
It's like, if you take Argento's name off of this and you just sell this as a really, really strong Italian giallo, it's got to rank up high among all of them. And there's so many good ones.
Absolutely.
It's just
when we were doing Hudson Horror Show, we were able to get a pretty rare U.S. print of Bird with a Crystal Plumage. It had a very strange title. I think it was called like The Phantom Killer.
Yeah.
The Phantom Kills Again, something like that. It was a very bizarre title. Of course, it was a late 70s, I believe, retitling. But I was going to say, that's another thing I was going to say, since we're talking this, of course, we're revisiting these movies on home video and streaming. But, I've been lucky to see a huge chunk of the Argento catalog projected in movie theaters, and that's truly the way these really should be experienced. I mean, if if you're able, and there is a screening in your area, you really should see it. I mean, Suspiria, which is I've seen, I think 4 or 5 times alone, just that one movie in the theater. Because to see it projected, and all these movies, not all of them, but some of them just are so colorful and vivid, and the sound. Argento pays such attention to both music and sound effects. These are movies that were made to play in movie theaters. To me, the thought of somebody watching Deep Red at home on their phone is like,
oh, don't even get me started with that.
Right. So yeah, I wanted to. Sorry to get us off on that tangent, but again, when I was rewatching it, I was like, my God, it looks. There's one point where David Hemmings is sweating, and there's a bead of sweat coming down the side of his face, and I'm like, it's so riveting. Like, I am glued to the screen. I can't look away.
Yeah.
And I can't really say that a guy sweating, has that effect on in any other movie.
Yeah. No, that's very true. Very true. So all right, there we got number 5 down.
Number 5. All right. My number 4 is Opera, which was released in Italy in December of 1987, and was unfortunately never released theatrically in America, although I was lucky, thanks to the guys at Exhumed Films in Philly. I was able to see a print of this a few years ago. Again, Daria Nicolodi is in it. She's one of the stars. Again, Claudio Simonetti of Goblin did the score. Long story short, there's an actress who is doing a live stage production, and of course, it's the unknown killer who kills in front of her and makes her a witness. The difference with Opera and all his other productions is that the character of Betty is tied up, and he puts the killer puts needles. He tapes needles to the whatever this is, the upper part of her cheek, I guess,
yep,
so that she cannot close her eyes. And so if she does, of course, blink, she stabs herself with the needles and begins to bleed. But because the killer is forcing her to watch these horrific deeds. And of course, that's the entire plot of the movie. He ties her up a couple times, and Argento actually thought of this because he had always felt he wished he could do that to movie reviewers who would go see his movies and then look away when the blood and the guts happened. And I thought, wow, that's pretty crazy. But I think Opera is a blast. It's very fast paced. There's got some great kills in it. I think it was a huge missed opportunity that somebody didn't put this out in theaters. Apparently, somebody, I think it might have been Orion Pictures, was going to put it out in 1989, but they were apparently cutting the film down, and they cut something that Argento didn't want cut. So that's what stopped it. And it did eventually come out. It went straight to VHS in America under the title Terror at the Opera.
Yeah.
But they wanted
to cut like 20 minutes of all the sick shit out of it, which doesn't make sense because that's
doesn't why bother.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, it is a good one. And that's another one too, where like a lot of these films, they try to keep you guessing as to who, because even this film, there's like probably 3 people that you suspect who.
Oh yeah, a lot of red herrings in this one.
Yeah, that the red herring thing is big in all of these films.
Yes.
And big time, especially maybe the most crazy ending out of all of these, I think, is my next pick, which is Tenebre.
Yes.
What the hell year was 1982?
1982. Yep.
Yeah. This also has an absolutely spectacular Goblin soundtrack. And I think what's interesting here is that, this is 82 as opposed to Deep Red, which was a bunch of years before. Goblin are using all of the early 80s synthesizers and state of the art, electronic equipment. And you can tell this has a more futuristic score to it, but it really works really well.
Oh, totally rocks.
So this story it's another giallo film. It's all about this very famous, rock star author who has written a book called Tenebre, and of course, he's in Italy, and right, it says Italy. I'm trying to whatever it doesn't.
Yeah.
I get the location.
He's on a press tour of Italy. Dario Nicolodi
right?
is his.
Yeah.
I think his publicist, and John Saxon is his agent.
This is agent, yes.
I remember right.
Exactly. So we got a killer out, and is basically a fan of his and utilizing things that happen in the book. And all of a sudden he gets kind of wrapped up in the whole thing, and he wants to, he's getting contacted, and it's just a really complicated yet very satisfying plot, and the way it's all laid out. And there's a lot of really good kills in this particular film, but this film specifically, like at about the 3/4 way mark, you think who the killer was, and you think there's a resolution to the story, and then you realize, holy crap, we have been totally had. And they take you on a totally different direction with it. I'm not going to give too much away if you haven't watched it, guys, but this is, I would say, the second half of this movie is really amazing. The first half is good too. But again, you've got Daria Nicolodi in this film as well, and she's great in this movie. She plays she's the author's assistant, right? She's
right, either assistant or publicist.
Yeah, something like that. And there's all these kind of subplots, that the author he's married, but there's something weird going on with their marriage, and the wife is following him to Italy, and there's all these little things going on. But man, there's some terrific kills in this film.
Oh.
Like that sort of thing.
I mean, the
film looks gorgeous. I mean, this is 82.
The scene where the woman in white gets her arm chopped off, and she moves her arm, and it just sprays the blood against the white wall. I think that's the single greatest kill of Argento's entire career. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. Yep. There's a lot of good ones in this one. I mean, literally you could sit down and probably check off like 6 or 7 boxes out of all the kills in this film. And this film looks really beautiful. Blu-ray. It's just a really, really well-made film with a lot of atmosphere, a lot of really nice colors and things, and really good acting. I like this. Yeah, this could have been higher, but it's number 4 for a good reason. So
yeah, that one was released in the US in 1984 under the title Unsane, which is a terrible title. And it was complete, like cut to ribbons. I remember seeing it on VHS as a kid and hating it. That's because all the good parts were cut out.
Yeah. Good film. Classic.
Yeah.
Classic.
Absolutely.
All right, back to you, number 3.
My number 3 is a movie that I really enjoy, and over time, this has come up consistently in my Argento rankings, but yet it's got one of the thinnest plots of any Argento film. Certainly, I think his classic era. And I actually just read, which I did not know, that he was really sick when he was making the movie, and at times he had to actually be on a gurney. He was so sick while directing. It's 1980s Inferno. It was his follow-up. There you go. I'm sure I'll be buying it again on 4K soon. It was his follow-up to Suspiria, which was a big, massive hit. Certainly his biggest hit in America. So it was decided that Suspiria was going to be now a trilogy of the 3 mothers. So in Inferno, and it's these 3 mothers who rule the world through death and despair and sadness. And Inferno, Suspiria touches on it. Inferno really digs deep, but the whole time you're just scratching your head like, what the fuck is going on? There's a woman who lives in this creepy apartment in New York City, and her brother is in Italy, and they're talking, and they lose contact. So the next thing you know, the brother has to come to New York to find the sister. And that's pretty much it. There's a bunch of weird, nightmarish shit that happens for 2 hours, and that's kind of how I look at it. Like it's
written in books
yeah,
and
there's stuff
hidden
in
rooms under buildings and
yeah,
rings and all this like keys and what?
yeah. There of course it's an Argento movie, so you've got killers, you've got your mothers, you've got your animals.
Yep.
But what happened? What's going on? I mean, I don't know. And I've seen this, I think, 3 or 4 times projected in theaters. It still goes over well because there are now some parts where you do have to giggle some because you're just like, what the fuck is going on? But it looks so amazing. It's the colors are so vivid. There's tons of blues, classic Argento because everything is framed and looks beautiful. Keith Emerson did the score rather than Goblin because Argento wanted to have something different. And this thing, for whatever reason, sat on a shelf in America for years, and it went straight to VHS in 1985, 5 years after it was released theatrically in other parts of the world. But I still really I enjoy it more and more every time I watch it in recent years. But it is batshit crazy of Argento's classic period. To me, it's the one where I'm just like, what in the world is going on here?
Yeah, it's so much fun to watch. You can't take your eyes off it, but the whole time you're like, I haven't a clue what is going on here, but I love it anyway, right?
That's it exactly. You're just like, what the fuck? I mean, I watched it maybe for the last time, maybe even though I already own multiple copies in the garage, I watched it on cable in the house, and I'm like, when the chef comes out with the meat cleaver, I'm like, what? Even though I've seen it 100 times, I'm like, this is it's just crazy.
Right.
It's just crazy. But it's a blast.
What does he think he's going to do, right? He's just...
Yeah. Then there's the rats and
the cats.
And oh my God.
I watched it on because I have it, I have it on Blu-ray, but I was watching it in bed the other night on Shudder because it's on Shudder right now.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, and it was late at night, and I'm like, I'm totally watching it, but then I'm nodding off, and I'm like, and then I'm waking up, I'm like, what did I miss? I've seen it like 3 times before, but I'm like, so I had to go rewatch it again on Blu-ray. Looks amazing on the 4K.
Oh, for sure.
And yeah, it's my number 3 as well, and it makes no sense.
Yeah, really. There's
man, is it so how
gorgeous.
That the whole first act when you've got the beautiful Irene Miracle. And she's going into this creepy house. Why is she going to this house? We don't know, right? She's looking for something. She's got this book, and there's a hole in the floor, and she goes into the hole in the floor, and all of a sudden,
like, who would do that?
It's like an ocean underneath the building.
Right, yeah.
And with great scene, her swimming in the water.
Unbelievable cinematography.
And like zombie creatures are in there, and she drops the key. It's like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
How awesome is it, though? I mean, it's just a great looking film. And you got a lot of your usual suspects in this movie, but it's a crazy one. But it is.
It really is.
A lot of fun. Don't it?
Yeah.
I'm sure someone out there has written a synopsis of what everything means in this.
Yes.
Film. I don't even know if I have the patience to sit through reading something.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, I'm sure there's because like typical Argento, there's a ton of symbolism. Like I said, it's the mothers and the animals and the killers, the constant themes, but it's just like, what is going on? But it doesn't matter.
I will say though, the guy that gets attacked and eaten by the rats in the end, good, because he was such a dick, right? What a scumbag.
That's true. Yeah.
So.
But
anyway,
a wacky one for sure.
That was my number 3 as well. So I guess on to number 2.
All right, my number 2 is the one you mentioned a minute ago, Tenebre. It's a movie that when I originally saw it on VHS as a kid in the early 80s, I did not like it because I didn't know all the good stuff was cut out. So then eventually in the later 80s, when I started tape trading, I got the, elusive Japanese cut, which again was widescreen, which again, total side note, people and kids today, you have no idea how easy you have it to be able to watch uncut movies in their proper aspect ratio, remastered at home. In the old days, you had to
Watched a
buy
lot of shit.
yeah, you had to buy bootleg copies of movies that were just in widescreen because there was no other way to to get these. And now, like you said, on Shutter, just pull it up, boop, oh, there it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm good to go. But yeah, Tenebre, ton of sex and violence and gorgeous naked women. It's super fast paced. The ending always cracks me up because I'm always like, I still don't get it. I mean, I get it, but I don't get it. But I'm like, okay, I'm just going with it. But yeah, just great, amazing look to it. That score is just unbelievable. So yeah, it's a great flick. I will gladly. I know I think 2 Blu-rays of Tenebre, and yeah, as soon as a 4K is announced, I'll have to buy it.
Yeah, most of his films just seem made for that, right? Like
Oh yeah,
I don't have Suspiria in 4K. I probably just need to get that. But there's like at least 3 or 4 of these films, if not more, that like you can just imagine. They were great looking on DVD,
yeah.
even better on Blu-ray, and you can just imagine like what the 4K looks like because there's all these just this visual imagery and colors in all of his films that like
Oh,
is tailor made for that medium.
totally. I mean, I didn't feel like going in my movie room and grabbing Deep Red the other night, so I pulled it up on Shutter, and even just streaming in HD. I was like, God, it looks amazing. The reds look so red. When the hatchet goes in the psychic and the blood comes out, and just like, whoa.
Yeah.
It looks amazing. So yeah, when we get to 4K of Deep Red, because they have 4Ks of apparently I'm behind. I have Suspiria, but I don't have Four Flies on Gray Velvet or Bird of the Crystal Plumage. So I got to get those, and then I'm sure Deep Red will be next.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. All right, my number 2, probably going to be Chris's number 1, Suspiria. This is probably his most fully realized like story, I would say. Even though this is also kind of like a what the fuck kind of movie in spots.
Right.
But I think this is probably his most different film, and I think that's a good thing. So, I mean, most folks probably know the whole story here at the dance school, and this. If you look carefully here, you can see the young lady who gets hung in the beginning of the film, and then you've got what was her name? What's her name again?
Jessica Harper.
Yeah.
As Susie Banyan,
like the American who comes into the dance school, and all sorts of crazy things happen. It's kind of, this also has this kind of supernatural thing, kind of like Inferno that we talked about before. But man, this movie is all about the visualizations, I guess, where it may lack on plot that makes sense to some. This is one of those movies where you watch and you just like, everything that happens on the screen is just gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's frightening, crazy violence and gore, or whether it's just like these dreamy sequences. I mean, it's got it all. And this is his most successsul film from a box office standpoint, right?
Yep, yeah. Most successful film, biggest hit in America. That's why apparently I think it was 20th Century Fox gave him $3 million after it to do Inferno, and just like do whatever you want. Because it was a big hit worldwide.
Yeah. I mean, this says it all here. The back of the Blu-ray case says Synapse Films brings their 4K restoration of Dario Argento's undisputed psychedelic masterpiece to Blu-ray. Psychedelic masterpiece is a perfect way to describe this film. This film almost seems like it came out of the late 60s. That's kind of the visual imagery is just unlike anything you've ever seen. And really good acting, some really like despicable characters, some characters you really latch on to. I don't know. It's your number one. I'm sure you got more.
Yeah, well, that's it, Pete. Absolutely, yeah, it's absolutely my number one. I think it's the most, and other people have said it too. It's the most beautiful looking horror film ever made. I mean, when I got the 4K from Synapse, I couldn't believe my eyes. It looks unbelievable. I watched it in the original 4-track quadraphonic sound, and I cranked it, and the walls were shaking, and I was like, oh my god. I mean, it was like, even though I'd already seen this movie 100 times, like I said, I've seen it probably 5 times in the theater alone. It looks unbelievable. The sound, everything. You know what I love about it too. It's such of all the Argento movies, it's the simplest plot. We've got a pretty young girl who is a stranger in a strange land, and she's our heroine, and we want to see her get out, but at the same time she's trying to solve the clues of what's going on with these murders in this ballet hall where she's being instructed. But it's so simple, and that's what I love about it. And I always say, sometimes with movies, even back, it doesn't matter if it's today or back then, it just gets too convoluted. You gotta boil it down, make it simple. And to me, this is perfect. Even though there is some wacky, what the fuck moments in Suspiria, you're always like, okay, I get it. This is our heroine. This is our girl. We don't want to see her. We like her. We don't want to see her get hurt, but she's trying to figure out what's going on. I hope she makes it out alive.
Yeah.
And there's all this weird, creepy, supernatural shit going on besides the black glove killer and the murders.
Yeah.
So that's why I think, and it's got the supernatural element. Daria Nicolodi, like I said, that was the one time she was gonna be in the movie. Something happened, she couldn't do it, but she did co-write it. True story. This was released in 1977 in America, and I was 6 years old at the time, and I loved horror movies even at 6. But listen, at 6, it doesn't mean I was impervious to being scared by stuff. So I was at my grandparents' house watching Channel 5 WNYW in New York, and they showed a 30-second TV spot for Suspiria, where a lady is combing her hair, and then while she's combing her hair, all of a sudden she turns around and she's got a skull face. And I was 6 years old in 1977, and it scared the shit out of me. Scared the shit out of me so much that I forgot all about it though. And then in the 80s, I watched Suspiria many times. It wasn't until I got the laser disc of Suspiria in like 1991, and it had that TV spot or trailer on it. And then when I saw it, I could feel the chills going up and down my spine. It all came back to me. It was like, holy shit. True story. The power of a 30-second TV commercial from, whatever it is, 40-something years ago. And ironically, that skull scene, not even in the movie. They just made it up for the TV spot. But an amazing movie, and I just love it. I could buy it, I don't know how many times.
That's a great story. That reminds me of back when I was a kid, and we used to go down to visit my grandparents who lived on the Lower East Side of Manhattan and right outside of Little Italy. And they used to have like this tiny little black and white TV in the kitchen, right? Because the small apartment, so it's like a kitchen dining room, not even a dining room, it's just a kitchen and a little table and this tiny little black and white TV. So my parents and my grandparents were in the other room watching TV or doing whatever, and my brother and I were watching whatever the hell we were watching. And it was a Saturday night, and it was on Channel 5 WNYW, and all of a sudden I remember they showed a commercial, and here you have this doom 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 in this hand.
The Chiller Theater hand.
Chiller Theater. And I remember like, holy crap.
Again, frightening.
Mid 70s, maybe probably earlier than that, because I was born in 66. So it was probably like 72, 73, something like that. And I was like, holy crap, what the hell is this? The show was never as
And I was going to say, the ironic part, that hand is scarier than any movie they ever showed.
Exactly.
But
But
same thing, yeah.
yeah, and you always remember. I remember I saw it years later because this was back in the '70s. I remember years later seeing it. And I was like, it's not scary like I remember, but that's still pretty damn cool, though.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. And it's amazing that you can, still remember and tie it to that, horrific feeling when you saw it as a kid.
Yeah, and I just picture myself, being a little kid. I remember it was in the summertime. It was hot in the kitchen. There was no AC, and I remember the lights were out and sitting in this uncomfortable chair watching this little tiny black and white TV. It's just you don't forget these things.
No, no doubt, absolutely.
So my number one is Deep Red, right in the middle there. To me, it's the greatest giallo ever made, probably ever will be made. I love the twists and turns in the film. I love the acting. I love the kills. The ending is, like you said, absolutely makes no sense, but I don't care because it keeps you, like I said, you think you know exactly what's going on, and then, maybe you don't. And then the maybe you don't kind of doesn't make any sense, but you're like, all right, whatever.
Right.
So, and I remember I had to watch this like twice. Like the first time I ever saw it, I was kind of like, huh? Let me watch that again. And then I'm like, yeah, I still don't know if that makes the most sense out of all the possible endings, but man, I love the movie anyway. And I love the beginning is great. What I like about this movie is they kind of reel you in right off the bat. And again, just like any of his films, especially this type of film, it's like you see this killing in the beginning, someone sees it, tries to go help, they get sucked into the whole thing. Totally. And then the whole film is trying to figure it out. I love how what's the main the actor's name again?
David Hemmings.
Yeah. Him and Dario Argento make a perfect combo in the film. There's a lot of humor there between the two of them, and just a really well done, fast paced film, which is really good too. I mean, there's no boring stretches in this movie at all, and it just looks great. Shot really well.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
It was just with me again, even when I watch it the other night, I'm trying to put the clues together and I'm like, what? Like when he's picking away in the building and there's a drawing that a little kid did, and I'm like, what does that mean? And then there's just so many.
The scene with the doll is creepy as all hell.
Oh yeah, you're right. How could I should have mentioned that earlier. The greatest. Like, I would watch a whole movie with that doll. Why is that doll only in the movie for like 10 seconds? Yeah, there's a part where a character is looking at a door. It's so creepy, and all of a sudden, a doll, like some kind of mechanical doll, that does this weird shuffle and is on a thing and just runs towards him, and then he hits the doll with a meat cleaver. It's nuts. And how nobody has ever made an action figure of that Deep Red doll.
I have no idea.
Well, and they could have done two, because then they could have done the baby doll that's on the poster and is in the movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a great one.
Yeah.
So, but there's more. So, in addition to
there's some more.
There are others. So, Chris, what are your honorable mentions from his film?
I mean, I really like. Again, this is another one where I didn't see it in theaters. I saw it on home video, and I thought it was kind of crappy. But then when I saw the uncut version, I really enjoyed it more. Is 1984's Phenomena, which was released in the States under the title Creepers. Which has a big lots of rock bands like Iron Maiden and Motorhead, and it stars Jennifer Connelly and Donald Pleasance, and again it's a bit of a
15 years old Jennifer was when
and again it's a bit of a head scratcher because there's like bugs and a monkey and all sorts of course you've got your killers, and
the chimp is the best.
Jennifer Connelly's trying to figure stuff out, and I don't even know is she 15 at the time?
She was 15.
One of the versions, maybe it's on the version you have too, Pete. I'll never forget listening to the running commentary with Dario Argento on one of the versions of Phenomena, and I have a couple of them. And he starts going on in his Italian accent. He's like, I think Jennifer Connelly has never looked as beautiful as she looks in my movie Phenomena. And I'm like, dude, are you fucking kidding me? She's like 14, 15. She's a kid in this movie. Like, did you see how hot was she when she got older? Like, what's wrong with you? You're a fucking creep. but that's beside the point.
Yeah,
But yeah, I really do like Phenomena
it's
and
really
Bird with the
good.
Crystal Plumage. If we were doing a top seven, I think that would be my my top seven. I think.
Cool. Yeah, I would also pick Phenomenon, or Phenomena. Sorry,
Yeah.
you want to add the O-N at the end here, but yeah, this is pretty cool. This also, kind of it kind of reminds me of a couple of his other films, like all rolled into one. But it's also like Suspiria, it's very atmospheric and very visual. And her character, she's an American. She
Yes.
school
It's very
overseas.
similar to Suspiria.
It is very similar. But here, of course, she can kind of communicate with insects. That's the whole kind of
Right.
subplot of this film. But what's really interesting, I probably shouldn't give it away, but what's really interesting is to see Daria playing kind of a different character in this film. I won't say anymore because
Right.
that'll give it too much away to the viewers, but I really like that aspect of it. But the one scene, the probably one of the grossest scenes ever, is when Jennifer's character gets dumped into that pit in the
Oh,
with all
yes.
the dead people and the
Yeah.
water, and she's swallowing the water, and I'm sitting there and
Yeah.
I'm gagging watching it. I'm like, oh my god,
It's
crazy.
it's kind of like the scene in Poltergeist in the swimming pool with the dead
Yes,
bodies,
yes,
but way grosser.
way grosser. Yeah, exactly. But there's some good kills in this too.
Yes.
They try to make this more of like a fantasy film, but at its core, it's really no different than some of these other ones. But another one that looks really really great. I also got to give props to Opera. Really
Yeah.
good, brutal film. I mean,
Oh
this
yeah.
one of his
I
more
think,
violent films.
I think it was a huge missed opportunity by somebody not, but 88, 89 slashers were still making a shit ton of money in America. I think it was a huge missed opportunity that somebody didn't put this out in theaters in the States.
Yeah, I agree. And one of his later ones, I just rewatched this the other day, and I liked it quite a bit because I think it goes back to his early films. Sleepless
Yeah.
with Max von Sydow,
I
and
haven't seen it in a while. I think it's called Non Sohono or something like that, right? Is that the
yeah,
Italian title?
something like that. Yeah. It's quite good. Again, it's more of a straight, there's no supernatural mumbo jumbo going on
Yeah.
in this one. This is just straight, we got a serial killer among our midst. Who is it? The whole film is about, all these clues and things like that. And I think the reveal at the end is pretty satisfying. And it's actually, it's always kind of cool when you sort of get to know a character in a film and then they reveal that character to be the killer. And then you see the character totally completely unhinged, and you're like, wow, did a really good job of hiding that throughout all the other scenes,
Right.
which I think was really good about this one. I think the guy who plays the killer at the end, really really well done. And I'll give a little prop to Two Evil Eyes, which has
Yeah.
got
With George Romero.
George Romero and Dario Argento. There are two stories in here. It's kind of like an anthology film. And they each direct both stories. I will go on record though and say I think I enjoy the Romero story a little bit better because of course it's got Adrienne Barbeau once again playing like a total bitch character, and I think
Right.
she does that really really well. And the Argento story has got Harvey Keitel kind of going out of character, doing some kind of like a supernatural kind of creepy horror film, which we're not used to seeing him in. I'm almost kind of like on the fence about his performance in it, but pretty cool film that never
Yeah.
gets talked about, I think. But
Yeah. And he's got some stinkers.
yeah,
Argento has some real
might as
stinkers.
well mention a few of them, yeah, because
I was
there
going to
are.
say that the two that come to my mind is Dracula 3D, which I bought sight unseen on Blu-ray, and I watched it once, and I mean it's just laughable. It's got the worst CGI, just terrible acting, and then the biggest letdown would be the Three Mothers, where he
Which
quote
was
unquote finally finished the Three Mothers trilogy, and it's fucking garbage.
yeah,
Garbage. I mean, I remember, it's been 20 years, so I'm sure he'll forgive me. But I remember interviewing Danny Filth from the band Cradle of Filth, who did a song on the Three Mothers soundtrack. And I remember asking him how it was, to do that. And he was like, is this off the record? And I'm like, sure. And I did. I left it off the record. I didn't publish it. He's like, well, he said, he goes, before I say that, he said, oh, it was a thrill. He's like, it was an honor. Danny, a huge horror fan. And then he's like, off the record. I'm like, sure. And he's like, have you seen the movie? I go, I haven't seen it yet. He goes, oh, it's fucking terrible. He's like, he goes, when I saw it, he's like, it was such a disappointment. And then shortly after talking with Danny Filth, I saw it and I'm like, this is fucking garbage. I mean, it's just, yeah, there's like exploding naked women and monkeys or something, but I'm like, what? Like, I couldn't believe how bad it was.
I've never seen it because I've only heard how terrible it is. Yeah. Even though part of me wants to watch it because it's kind of like the end of the trilogy there. But yeah,
I'll say this: I would see it again. So maybe we should watch it one day because I would sit through it again because I saw it the one time and I just thought it was horrifically bad. Again, because
you own it or no?
No, but I'm sure I can track a copy down somewhere.
Yeah. You know what else is not good? His remake of Phantom of the Opera.
Yes, that's that one I do own, and that one's kind of a stinker.
Yeah,
but I'll be honest, I think it's not as bad as Dracula 3D and the Three Mothers.
Yeah, you're probably right. I haven't seen trauma. Stendhal syndrome is kind of iffy. I don't know. Stendhal syndrome is pretty violent, but
yeah, that's the one where the killer has that like machine, like that like. It's like a power tool with a big band on it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
That's that one, right?
Pretty sure, yeah.
I mean, I've seen them. It's been a while, but yeah, those were kind of, I guess, sort of the mid range of the. But yeah, the card player I wasn't really thrilled with. And I'm trying to think what else. I don't know if you have the film.
Yeah, looking at them all right. Yeah, this giallo.
I mentioned Four Flies on Gray Velvet. That was one of his earlier movies.
Oh, that's
good.
It was
never one of my favorites.
No, that's pretty good.
But I like Cat o' Nine Tails. Yeah. I do like Cat o' Nine Tails.
Yeah.
With James Franciscus.
Yeah, he's very good in that, actually. Yeah, that was another one I wanted to mention. That's right.
There we go. Yep, that's another really good one.
That's good. Yeah, that's more. You know what? Cat o' Nine Tails to me could have been like a mainstream type of just crime thriller movie.
Totally. So that steers more towards the Angela Lansbury mystery than the blood and guts giallo.
Really well done though.
Yeah.
Yeah. And James, you can't go wrong with James Franciscus.
Oh,
and Carl Malden.
Carl Malden. Yep. You're absolutely right. Another, it was a great pairing, and they worked well. I think it was called Cookie in the movie, right? The little girl keeps calling Carl Malden Cookie.
Yeah, he's playing the blind guy.
But yeah, that's a good. Yes, yeah, that's definitely one of his. Again, it just came out on 4K. I'll have to rebuy that one.
They're all coming out, man.
That's it.
Credit card out, right?
But hopefully, this is it. These are the definitive versions. Let's hope.
I think we said that when Blu-ray came out.
Oh, for sure. Hell, I said it when DVD came out.
I can't keep buying all this stuff over and over and over again. The curse is real, folks.
It's terrible.
Oh, I'm telling you, it's crazy. So there you have it, everybody. Ranking our 5 favorite films of Dario Argento and a healthy dollop of some honorable mentions and not honorable mentions. So.
And the Suspiria remake was terrible. Some people like it. I saw it in a theater and I really came close to walking out like 10 times.
I didn't even bother.
Yeah. I'll give it this much. It's very different. But remember how I said like Argento's Suspiria has a very simple plot? Yeah. The remake of Suspiria, sure, it's got a girl in in a ballet studio. She's a stranger in a strange land. But then there's all this other weird shit that goes on, and I have no idea what happened. But it's 2.5 hours, but it feels like it's 5 hours. So I'll never sit through it again.
It's one of those films that didn't need a remake.
Yeah.
When we talked about that in the past, about these films that they remade that just didn't have to go there. So I never bothered with it. I have no desire to see it. The original is great at what it is, and you don't need to try and improve on it. You don't need to try and deface it. It just leave it alone. That's the one that people should go watch. Never mind the remake, because how much, I'm sure there's plenty of people who saw that remake had no idea that there was an original movie called Suspiria.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
It's a shame. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, everybody. There you have it. Tune in next week. We've got a very interesting show for next week. So Chris and I are going to discuss and show off the Camp Blood series. Yes. From Sterling Productions. So if you've never heard of Camp Blood, if you are a Jason Voorhees Friday the 13th fan, and like the idea of like a crazed killer at the camp or at the lake or something like that, there's a whole series called Camp Blood with a killer they call him the Clown, right? He's got a clown mask and he's got various different types of things to kill people with, and
there's boobs and blood.
That's what it's all about. Boobs, blood, and clowns, right? Yeah. And so we're going to talk about the whole Camp Blood series coming up next week, so stay tuned for that next Thursday. And we've got all sorts of cool things planned for Monsters Den going forward. A lot of really good fun ideas that we've been kind of tossing around for a while, so stay tuned for that and a lot more. Chris, final thought of the day.
Man, I wish I didn't have to buy all these movies again in 4K.
You and me both. I mean,
I already started with Suspiria, so I'm like, well, they said collect them all, so
yeah, collect them all. It's like
I gotta do it.
Buying the cereal boxes to get the little thing inside.
That's it.
Yeah, gotta have them all. Gotta have them all. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Please rank the Argento films as you like them in the comments below, and visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Stay tuned tomorrow morning. We've got Forgotten Favorites first thing in the morning, and then back to the Funhouse with Martin Popoff shortly thereafter. And then stay tuned this Sunday for our next edition of Album Homework Assignment. We've got George Lamy and Rand Kelly going head to head. You don't want to miss that one. So, and then before you know it, Chris and I will be back in the Hudson Valley Squares Monday evening. So stay tuned for that and more. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Click on that notification bell. Got links below to our Ko-Fi page for channel donations, as well as Sea of Tranquility merch store, where you can get all sorts of cool t-shirts and hats and hoodies and stickers and coffee mugs and all that fun stuff. And of course, seatranquility.org, our webzine that has been now on the internet for 20 years this year, our 20th anniversary. So thanks for watching. For Chris Alo, I'm Pete Pardo. Good night, everybody.